Good morning and many thanks for staying with us right here in Morning at NTV. It is World Press Freedom Day, and I would like to send a very great message to all my comrades within the media fraternity with whom we've been working left, right and center during the whole electoral period. We've been battered, we've been beaten, we've been humiliated, but then we are still here. I want to say that you are the MVP, you are the biggest, most important person in this country. You are beaten, but still you go out of your way to actually go out there and disseminate information. I want to say thank you to you, the media practitioner, who has braved all the hostile political environment within this country to actually go ahead and execute your job in the midst of the poverty, the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much. Of course, questions over the effect of the COVID-19 stimulus package are still causing so many tanks to wag. I have Africa Kiza. He is a trade policy analyst with Siatini. Would like to talk about the COVID-19 stimulus package. Remember the money that was released in 2020? Yes, 2020 around, was it?
Yes.
Around April. Around April of 2020, some 2.9 trillion Uganda shillings was released to help the micro, small and medium-sized enterprises that were actually battered by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fast forward, the Uganda Development Bank received 1 trillion of that money. Uganda Development Corporation received that money, and also the Microfinance Support Center. Now, the money that went to the Uganda Development Bank, it was 1 trillion, but then they did not receive all the money. They only received 455 billion Uganda shillings. Now, out of the 455 billion Uganda shillings, they only released 245 billion Uganda shillings during the onset of the pandemic to help those MSMEs that were struggling during the onset of the pandemic. Now get this, I've just told you that 245 was released, but then the 100,000 small and medium-sized enterprises in Uganda, yes, that make up 90% of the private sector, say they didn't receive a single cent from the stimulus package. That's the Colors Development coming in on Morning at NTV. Africa Kiza, I'll not preempt his conversation. He's already here. He's a trade policy analyst with Siatini. He's going to engage us. A very good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you.
What are we dealing with right now? You have a stimulus package that was released, 2.9 trillion.
Yes.
UDB gets some 1 trillion shillings.
Yes.
So even they don't receive the whole money. They receive only 455, and then they released 245, but none of this money ever reached the micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, the 100,000 companies that make up 90% of the private sector. How did this happen?
Well, I think so. It all goes back to the aspect of refute of the UDB to execute its mandate. But when you look at the Act of Parliament that brings UDB into play. Part C of the Act, UDB is supposed to be lending, to be the lender of MSMEs, because they realize that commercial banks cannot become the best venture financial for MSMEs. So UDB was meant to be able to cushion MSMEs by giving viable credit facilities. But of course, the aspect has been the actual performance of UDB as per the statute that put in place.
Right.
UDB currently has been really disappointing to MSMEs, largely, one can say. Yes.
So we understand that they only advertised in February
Yes,
of
February
2021.
2021.
The money
Yes.
is released in April of 2020,
Yes.
and they advertised in February of 2021.
Yes, but before
and
they
even when they
advertised in August,
advertised,
yes.
they said this money is not for SMEs, it's for the recapitalization of UDB.
Yes.
Help us understand what that means.
Yeah, that shows the discrepancies we've been having, and not only really in the UDB per se, but also the governance aspect. That's why you are not surprised when you see the minister come and up and saying that, no, I didn't know that Umeme was a middleman in generation of, that already shows that there's a problem. UDB, this money was meant to be used in the existing programs of government that was meant to support MSMEs in recovery post-COVID-19. So for UDB to come up and say, we did not receive, this money is not meant for COVID-19 MSMEs, then that is self-denial, because that was the purpose. Then at the beginning we should have known. And it goes back also again to the fact that the checks and balances when it comes to UDB are really rather challenging, are rather not so effective, because UDB has largely been in the spotlight even before Parliament, but UDB has not succumbed to the pressure of Parliament to present the actual books of accounts on how it has spent this money. That has been the challenge. And it all goes, like I was saying, it all goes back to the governance aspect. If there was a checks and balances saying that UDB will not utilize this money, we are not going to give you more money, then UDB would have actually retaliated and done the needful. But actually, it is surprising that in the national budget for this financial year, we are adding more money, close to 1 trillion, to UDB. Again, for this. So you are already adding a failed institution funds to undertake activities for the purpose which has failed. That becomes challenging. So you start questioning what exactly has been, what exactly is going on. Meaning that there is a spin master. They know what is happening, but again, they can't dare question.
So I would like to know, Africa Kiza, because the situation is really compelling. Businesses are not actually operational. Many of them have cut down on the amount of time they have to operate, so meaning lesser money is coming in, and then government is proposing to tax more these businesses that they didn't even help resuscitate themselves during the pandemic. What would be the immediate ramifications of this? Taxing businesses that are already slipping?
I'm glad you're asking this question. It has always actually baffled me that we are taxing them out of business. We are taxing the ailing business out of business.
I see.
Yes, there are some unfortunate taxes that have been proposed. And like you're saying, first of all, you've lied to the MSMEs. Actually, for the first thing, we need an apology. MSMEs need an apology from the government. Every arm of government needs to apologize to MSMEs because they were lied to in broad daylight. This was granted theft going on because you're saying MSMEs, there's a package for you, and they're not accessing it. But again, you're coming up with taxes. Let me give you some of the unfortunate taxes. For example, take an example of the 12% tax on data.
Indeed.
COVID-19 brought the aspect that we need to shift from physical markets to online markets. And online markets, it's more on, you have your social media account, you have your friend, you advertise your goods, then they're able to. And in the end, much of our taxes being consumptive, you would know that the more we earn, the more we consume. But instead of supporting, instead of actually government reducing on the cost of internet, you are adding more cost in terms of data. This makes it hard for MSMEs to be able to join the digital world, and in the end, it becomes self-defeating. And actually, there are promises that government had promised us free internet from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. Where has that gone? Nothing. They actually taxing us more. There is another tax, for example, on packaging materials, glass. One of the reasons, for example, why MSMEs cannot access Kenya's market is because of standards. I understand there are some political aspects, but standards, because some goods are not to standard. Now, the challenge is that some of the packaging materials, like plastic ones, sometimes contaminate the products and they end up losing the actual standards post-production. Now, there is a 35% tariff that has been slapped on importation of glass. So that becomes, it makes it already difficult for MSMEs to break through. So the implication will be that we are already having an ailing economy and we are taxing it. So there won't be much that is going to be recouped. And what is going to be the reason, the way out? Go for more loans. We are already, we are already down because of the loans, the chain around the neck of debt.
But then we do have 17 trillion shillings from the financial 2020 to 2021 in undisbursed loans. Africa Kiza. What exactly are we looking at? I mean, they say they do not have the money. But then when you look at the reports that are coming in from the Auditor General, we have 17 trillion shillings in unused loans. This money could go to reservicing the SMEs. Yes.
I once did an interview here at NTV, and it was again on that same issue. Undisbursed funds. And one of the aspects that came up was the fact that there is the issue of procurement, that in the local government, procurement takes a lot of time, and then by the time we finalize procuring, we send to Ministry of Finance, things are already out of hands. So that again takes us the question that how strengthened are these institutions to remove the middleman? If you look at Kenya as an example, when it came to the stimulus package, the government of Kenya did not consider commercial banks. It went to associations of MSMEs and injected the monies there. They went to they went to an agreement. This is how much we are going to give you. This is Aaron, but we will need to have this kind of documentation, and each MSME should have ABCD because they understand the problems of MSMEs.
Of course.
They know them
Even
themselves.
John Walugembe, the Executive Director, Federation for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, I was talking to him the other day and he said, well, we have these structures, but you cannot just put the money in UDB. There won't be a trickle-down effect. But if you use the local structures that are already existing, the money would have gone to these 100,000 MSMEs.
Yeah, the most amazing thing that makes you laugh instead of crying of this government is that the alleged borrowing rate was supposed to be at 8%. It is at 14.5%. So nothing has changed in terms of how we used to access. So that has been a challenge. We should have, instead of now adding more money to, that's like flogging a dead horse. Instead of adding more money to UDB, would have gotten the money, put it into small, medium enterprise associations. And we task them on accountability. We task them on allocation of these funds because we have had UDB claim to have given funds, stimulus packages to existing firms, when actually these are ghost farms, when actually some of the farms that got this money was through the usual loan schemes that have been happening, not the stimulus package. Yet also the beneficiaries were not the intended ones. The stimulus package is meant for agro-processing MSMEs. Now you're giving it to those who are constructing malls and constructing houses. That is not meant for the stimulus package. And that also is self-defeating because it means that then you've not addressed the core challenges of stimulating the economy to grow, to be able to tax it. You end up actually making them choke on taxes.
It seems like this economy can never grow unless we tackle the issue of corruption, Africa Kiza, because everything else buckles down to corruption.
It is very important. It is very important, and we know that it is there happening. There is less corruption in the private sector.
Indeed.
Than in government.
And that's why we are battered the most.
Yes, that's why
the holy ones get taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
And that's why I insist that it is high time we review the stimulus packages and we see what are the right channels and strategies that we are going to use for the package to reach the intended beneficiaries. Private sector associations for MSMEs are the right instruments. Forget even this aspect of saying we have microfinance support institutions. Those are even worse because the requirements that they give, you are asking an MSME to first of all have his own, and we are talking about startups. These are startup MSMEs whose startup capital is barely 5 million shillings.
And then they're saying for us we're giving money above 100 million Uganda shillings.
Come on.
How many were able to access this money?
Cut us some slack. I mean, they can't afford that. They can't. That is too much money. They can't afford. And again, you're saying that before you access this amount, you have first go to chartered institutes. I mean, the accountants who are accredited by the Bank of Uganda to audit you. Which accounting audit firm is going to accept less than 5 million to audit you?
The Certified Institute of Public Accounting.
Yes, exactly. That you have to go to them. Then again, you have to
appraise your business.
I mean, it's
to know the value.
You are asking a startup.
Indeed.
I mean, it's like we are living on Mars and we are magically appear on Earth.
So the requirements by UDB made it harder for these MSMEs to actually apply for this money.
Exactly. But they know it. It's not that they don't know, they do know. But the issue is you make it as hard as it can be for an MSME to be able to access the money. And in the end, when you declare that none of the beneficiaries have come up, then you are, of course, ready to juggle with the sharks who can access, who have the requirements, who are not supposed to be the beneficiaries. And in the end, you continue growing the disparities. The MSMEs go out of business. The already established businesses who could actually thrive end up. Let's take an example. The package was also made, for example, to support the creative industry. How many artists have been able to access this money?
Indeed.
How many in the creative industry have accessed this money? None. So these are the discussions we need to look into. To support, for example, also supporting the health sector, those that are involved in health and all that. I would be lying if I said that they have access
Africa
to
case, let's address the Minister of Finance, Matia Kasaija, directly. He contends that he earmarked 6.9 trillion Uganda shillings to security and governance simply because you cannot have development if you do not focus on your security. Now, I want to know from you, would it be wishful thinking to believe that if we do not focus on the MSMEs who make up 90% of the private sector, this economy shall not be resuscitated, this economy shall not be revived to get back on its feet if we do not focus on the SMEs?
You're asking this question on WordFree, is it WordPress?
WordPress Freedom Day.
WordPress Freedom Day.
Yes.
And this is a very important question.
Amazing.
We are not at war. We are actually at war with ourselves. I mean, the government, the security forces are at war with the citizens, battering journalists, battering people who are going for, peaceful protests and all that. So we are not fighting a proxy war like maybe we are in the Congo, we are in nothing. So
our own.
The security we are having, the security issues we are having are from our own bad governance. I do not see why we should inject close to 7 trillion in financing security when we have actually many of the crimes that we see are economic.
I hear you.
Yes, aspects of unemployment.
Thank you.
Why do we have car muggers? Because they're unemployed. I was looking at the aspect when before coming. I was looking at the story of the people that the external labor.
Externalization of labor. Yeah.
Yes. Why is
they
that
are living because of
Why
unemployment.
is that exactly? Who can create
300,000 people.
Exactly. Who can create the employment? The MSMEs.
And these people would go a long way in developing their own country.
Absolutely. And there is always this talk, the same old rhetoric that the Minister of Finance will always tell us, that you see many of these MSMEs cannot see their second anniversary. Why? Because your taxman is on their neck. I mean, it is always hard, it is so hard for an MSME to break through when the cost of doing business is so high, when the cost of electricity is so high, and then you tell us, oh, I did not know that women was a middleman. Just come on, you knew.
And they'll still tell you that we are producing more electricity, but it's still expensive.
Absolutely. You cannot, so the issue is that we have our priorities have not gone right. We are like the legendary, in Japan they call them the three Japanese wise monkeys. Yes, no, there are those monkeys in that legend. They do not see evil.
Yeah.
It's like this emoji that has someone touching their face. They do not hear evil.
Yes.
And they do not speak evil. But there is evil.
Indeed.
That's the issue. Here, the aspect is that our budget was supposed to be progressive and was supposed to look at the production aspects of the economy, to stir the economy, to resuscitate the economy back to its feet. And this was meant to look at what are the productive sectors. We talked about agriculture, agro-industrialization, we talked about tourism, we talked about health, we talked about education, not security. Security is not productive. Security is actually predatory, and predatory in a way that it actually ends up playing on the innocent and suspecting Ugandans. So to me, I see a mismatch in walking the talk. That the political talk we are given is that we are going to refocus, to reignite the economy back into industrialization under Hakuna Mchezo. But there's a lot of mchezo when it comes to allocation of the actual resources that will make this political talk happen.
Africa, Kiza, if you were to develop the 90% small and medium-sized enterprises that make up the private sector, would it be right to say that many of these 300,000 young men and women who have been lost within the Middle East would still be home, absorbed by the private sector?
They would.
How?
They would. If we had the right industrialization strategy in terms of, let me give an example. We are having, for example, the meat packing industry factory that was established at Bombo Road here.
Indeed.
Why for Christ's sake should you establish a whole factory, meat production on Bombo Road, as if we have, if you look at the Auditor General's report for the last 2 consecutive years, financial years, 60% of all the established factories have been operating below standards. This is where it gets exciting. You say UDC, for example, has been very kind of corporation, has been critical in establishing factories, agro-processing factories. But you know what is happening? Whenever you go to Karere Market, also even here at Owin in the morning, you will hear people like those that are always calling for buyers to come. You will hear there is a very common phrase they use, "Muje muraba masiga go murimi."
Indeed.
You come and look at the tears of a farmer.
Indeed.
You are having 20 pineapples going for 10,000. But UDC is meant to support in, stimulating, the production, value addition on pineapples to create juice and all that. It is not happening. If we had agriculture well planned, that we are going to put industries, factories, back into the economy, rural sector, so they can be near the farmers, then it would make sense.
Well, the president is still adamant to talk about the issue of minimum wage because he feels like it will scare away investors who are looking for cheap labor in Uganda. Do you think a minimum wage will go a long way in actually resuscitating the private sector, developing it, if you will?
We feel very insulted sometimes, by the way, when we hear such kind of unfortunate rhetoric. I saw on Saturday
Labor Day, yep.
a whole minister of state for labor, moreover a doctor for that sake, saying that a minimum wage would be disastrous for the economy. So, and by the way, we are talking about a living wage. We are not asking for millions of monies. We are asking for a living wage that we need to just be able to, to earn a living. So when you find that you are allowing workers to keep working under Slavic conditions, slavery, because of few peanuts, then that's not support, that's not helping. So the only way, I think, to me, it is important that we recoup. We should not take the Chinese sweatshops mode of industrialization.
So lack of minimum wage makes our citizens in Uganda slaves just the same way those who go to the Middle East to work slaves the same way.
Absolutely. And I think it increases crime rate. And it makes production, labor productivity go low.
Africa Kiza, he is a trade policy analyst with Siatini. I couldn't have been more proud to have this conversation with you right now when we are talking about resuscitating MSMEs.
Yes.
All right, and I wish you all the best in your endeavor in securing this money to go help the MSMEs.
Thank you so much for that.
All right, and you're still watching Morning at NTV. Such conversations can only be found right here on Morning at NTV. We've been running since 6:30 a.m. and we're still moving on strong. We have a conversation on World Press Freedom Day. I have Dorothy Mukasa, the Executive Director of Unwanted Witness, to talk about how the journalists have had it rough during this season of COVID-19. We'll be right back.